Hello everyone, Happy New Year. You're joining me in my backyard. I didn't plan on making a video for this. I'm enjoying a good cigar, and I've got my whiskey over here, and it's been a while since I made a video, and I've been missing it. So I thought I'd just speak off the cuff a little bit, and we'll see how this goes. So first of all, thank you all over the last year for all the comments, questions you sent in, for the people who liked the channel, for the friends who had nice things to say. I made 11 videos in my Stoicism series, and I promised myself I would make 10 videos on the channel at minimum, and we made 11, so that was cool. And as I mentioned before, I'm busy working on a comic book. I'm about 3/4 of the way through the script for the first issue. I'm hoping that there's going to be about 10. But I'm also, of course, busy with work and kids, and also my wife and I are in the process of getting our house ready to sell because we're going to move. So that's been a big part of my time. That's been a big time sink for me as well. So it's slow going. I hope to have the comic script all done before I made another video, but I didn't want to let too much time go, so here we go. But I just kind of wanted to share some thoughts I had on this New Year's evening at the end of 2020 and the beginning of 2021. So I don't think I need to tell any of you that this year has been fucked. It's been a crazy year, and while this year is thankfully over, and we're hopeful, we don't exactly know what 2021 is going to bring. So part of the reason that I made the Stoicism video series was as a kind of critical intervention. It was something that was very helpful to me when I needed it, and I thought there were a lot of people, friends and people I cared about, who might get a lot out of it too, so I put it out there. I feel like at this point, though, I've said pretty much everything I need to say about it for those people that needed it to pick it up and take it where they need to take it. And another reason that I made the video series is because I wanted to sort of divulge myself of it. Nietzsche has this saying, which I'll paraphrase because I didn't look it up, about being like too full of wisdom and having to dispense it. And at the risk of sounding arrogant, I don't want to claim I'm too full of wisdom or anything like that, but I think there is a natural tendency to want to formulate what it is you're thinking about, what you're working on, what you're organizing your world around, and put it out there for others, because in doing so, it helps you clarify your own thinking. And it seems to be a natural phase in the evolution of anyone who decides to pursue philosophy or religion or any kind of pursuit of that nature. At a certain point, it sort of becomes incumbent on you to start putting material out into the world and see where it goes and what happens with it. So I want to continue to do that, and I want to continue to do that with this channel, not just in terms of, sharing writing projects and things like that I have, but also continuing the series I had on philosophy. But I don't necessarily want to just make a philosophy channel. I don't want to pursue philosophy for the sake of philosophy, if that makes sense. Not in the sense that we talk about it today. Because philosophy is for something, right? It's for living well, and it's for orienting yourself in the world. And this is it has to be useful, and it has to be something that makes your life better. And I don't think if we were just to do, say, a survey of philosophical schools, and we were to, conduct it the way you would in like a seminar or something, or in a college course. I mean, that stuff's out there. That's not interesting, or it's interesting, but there's plenty of people who do that and do it better than I do, far better than I do. I'm a poor sinner in the sense that I'm not someone who I don't mean that in the Christian sense. I just mean it in a sort of euphemistic sense, that I'm somebody who doesn't claim to have it all figured out, but I'm someone who's been thrown into the deep end of the pool, proverbially, metaphysically, spiritually, and has learned how to tread water and how to sort of doggy paddle around. And so maybe I can teach some other people to doggy paddle too, if that makes sense. So in talking about 2021, there's a writer whose work I find very interesting. Um, he's kind of famous or infamous, depending on what circles you travel in, Jack Donovan. And he has a phrase, which he, I think, took from Peter Fonda, of all people, start the world. And I think it was from an interview where the actor said something like, I prefer not to talk about stopping something. I prefer to talk about starting something. Let's start something. Let's start the world. And Donovan has taken this idea of starting the world. To me, this echoes back to a concept of Heidegger. So Heidegger points out that primarily men dwell poetically. And what I think he means by that is that we live first and foremost in a kind of narrative flow, in a sort of story we tell ourselves about who we are, about what the world is, about our place in it. And we attempt to synthesize all of our experience into a coherent outlook on the world. And the form that cohesion takes is a kind of poesis. It's a kind of poetic or artistic, aesthetic experience. We have the ability to step outside of that, to, as Heidegger calls it, de-world ourselves, to abstract away from this experience and examine parts or pieces of it outside of the context of the whole. But our phenomenological experience of the world exists in that poetic frame. And I think what the world is really suffering from now, what we're suffering from in Western civilization, is a loss of confidence in our narratives, in all the grand narratives. This is really the essence of postmodernism, is this idea that all grand narratives have been found wanting. And in this sense, I think Nietzsche really is the prophet of the modern age. Nietzsche's concept of the death of God is commonly misunderstood by a lot of people. They think he means something like there is no God, like the atheist claim, but that's not the claim he's making. He might have believed that or not believed that, but that's irrelevant. The point is that the binding religious narrative of the West, this hierarchy of values that has the biblical God at the top, has created a system of values. This is another thing he says, that the highest values devalue themselves. So what he means is that the highest values, this system of ethics, this poetic view of the world, inculcated, was a severity of the spirit, was a holding to truth as the highest value, and and that pursuit of truth, of what is true, of what is correct, and a harshness in dealing with oneself when you encounter incongruities or dissonance in your own thinking, produced an outcome where this narrative cannot really be upheld or believed in the old way anymore. And the top collapses. The remaining structure still stays there, but the justification for it, the rationale for it, is no longer there. So we live very much in a world where most of our ethical instincts are still derived from this framework, even though the many people will sort of not subscribe to it in the old religious sense. And I think even for many of my religious friends, the modern man doesn't really approach religion in the same way that, say, someone in the 1800s did or someone in the 1700s did. And with the loss of this grand organizing narrative, there also comes a sense that all grand narratives are subjective, false, uncertain. And that leaves us in a kind of wasteland of meaning. And we cling to things. We try to find new centers, new replacements for that missing top of that pyramidal hierarchy. And in fact, many ways, sort of religious fundamentalism is a kind of a rearguard motion. It's a sort of hardening of it. Like, no, we're gonna follow the letter, and anything outside this is wrong. And this is a kind of defensive reaction, because the structure is no longer alive for us. The poetry doesn't live. It can't encounter strangeness and the other and assimilate it anymore. It has to harden its boundaries. This is part of a kind of death process. Like a corpse will undergo rigor mortis. It'll harden, and then it'll loosen and flow apart. And I think we see the same thing happening in the cognitive structure of the West today. And one unfortunate fact is that a over-reliance on the state and a need for totalitarian authority over human life is a product of a lack, of failing of social cohesion. And that's, I think, what we're living in right now. And so the idea that, yes, okay, this current crisis of the pandemic fear and all that, and the political machinations of various parties in the United States, that is passing, that will pass, and something will take its place. But the underlying problem hasn't gone away, right? The underlying issue of the collapse of the poetic structure of Western civilization is still something we are grappling with. But the good news is, right, that ultimately we don't lose the wisdom of the past. It doesn't disappear. It falls to us to understand it and reinterpret it in a new way, and to try to forge a new synthesis. And we are seeing that. We're seeing the birth of new syntheses. Some of them can be quite monstrous in their appearance. It's going to take time, and it's going to take the energy of good people to try to construct a new poesis, a new poetics for life. And this is the value-giving function that Nietzsche described of the Übermensch, the man who can give value. Now, I don't know if individuals will ever attain sort of the height that he says where they create their own values. I'm not sure we can create our own values in that sense, but perhaps we can discover them, formulate them, and communicate them. And I think to some extent that's something we have to do together. We have to, because no human being is capable of grappling with the whole of existence all by themselves. So tonight, I think we should celebrate. I think we should celebrate the fact, above all, that we made it through this year. And I think we should remain hopeful for the future. But I think next year is going to be really interesting, because I think it's the year that I think the good thing that's come out of this year is a lot of people have woken up to the fact that the conventional narratives and the conventional institutions are bankrupt. They're bankrupt of meaning. They are bankrupt of the ability to guide and shape life. They are unable to provide security. They are unable to provide direction. And they are mostly just flailing around trying to save themselves. And it falls upon us as individuals to start the world with us, with ourselves, our families, our friends. And this is a wonderful and joyous opportunity that we have to forge order out of chaos. Anyway, I guess that's my New Year's wishes for all of you. I hope you are happy and healthy, and I will see you in the new year.